Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Dhena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. I just noticed this quote next to Srila Prabhupada. By reading my books and chanting Hare Krishna, your life will become perfect. So, we're in a good place. Haribol. Today, we're going to hear from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And we'll hear at least a couple of the verses from the 4 original verses of the Bhagavatam that were spoken by Lord Krishna to Brahma before Brahma created the universe, otherwise known as the Catur Sloki Bhagavatam. And it's actually, there are commentaries in both the Srimad Bhagavatam and in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. So we'll hear a little bit from both. And this will go on today and also Saturday morning. So we have a little time. Little time. Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Dhena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 9, Answers by Citing the Lord's Version. And today we'll begin with text number 33, which is the first in the Catur Sloki Bhagavatam. Aham eva sameva agre nadyat yat sadasat param paschadahang tadetatcha yo vishishyeta sosmyaham. Aham, I, the personality of Godhead. Eva, certainly. Asam, existed. Eva, only. Agre, before the creation. Na, never. Anyat, anything else. Yat, all those. Sat, the effect. Asat, the cause. Param, the supreme. Paschat, at the end. Aham, I, the personality of Godhead. Yat, all these. Etat, creation. Cha, also. Yaha, everything. Avishishyeta, remains. Sa, that. Asmi, I am. Aham, I, the personality of Godhead. Translation: Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who was existing before the creation when there was nothing but myself. Nor was there the material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead. And after annihilation, what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead. Please repeat. Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who was existing before the creation, when there was nothing but myself. Nor was there the material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead. And after annihilation, what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki. We should note very carefully that the personality of Godhead is addressing Lord Brahma and specifying with great emphasis himself, pointing out that it is he, the personality of Godhead, who existed before the creation. It is he only who maintains the creation, and it is he only who remains after the annihilation of the creation. Brahma is also a creation of the Supreme Lord. The impersonalist puts forth the theory of oneness in the sense that Brahma, also being the same principle of I, because he is an emanation from the I, the absolute truth, is identical with the Lord, the principle of I, in that there is thus nothing more than the principle of I, as explained in this verse. Accepting the argument of the impersonalist, it is to be admitted that the Lord is the creator I, and that the Brahma is the created I. Therefore, there is a difference between the two I's, namely the predominator I and the predominated I. Therefore, there are still two I's, even accepting the argument of the impersonalist. But we must note carefully that these two I's are accepted in the Vedic literature, Catur in the sense of quality. The Catur says, Nityo nityanam chetanas chetananam eko bahunam yo vididhati kaman. The creator I and the created I are both accepted in the Vedas as qualitatively one because both of them are nityas and chetanas. But the singular I is the creator I, and the created I's are of plural number because there are many I's, like Brahma, and those generated by Brahma. It is the simple truth. The Father creates or begets a son, and the Son also creates many other sons, and all of them may be one as human beings, but at the same time, from the Father, the Son and the grandsons are all different. The Son cannot take the place of the Father, nor can the grandsons. Simultaneously, the Father, the Son, and the grandsons are one and different also. As human beings, they are one, but as relativities, they are different. Therefore, the relativities of the creator and the created, or the predominator and the predominated, have been differentiated in the Vedas by saying that the predominator I is the feeder and the predominated I's, and thus there is a vast difference between the two principles of I. In another feature of this verse, no one can deny the personalities of both the Lord and Brahma. Therefore, in the ultimate issue, both the predominator and predominated are persons. This conclusion refutes the conclusion of the impersonalist that in the ultimate issue, everything is impersonal. This impersonal feature, stressed by less intelligent impersonalist school, is refuted by pointing out that the predominator I is the absolute truth and that he is a person. The predominated I, Brahma, is also a person, but he is not the absolute. For realization of oneself in spiritual psychology, it may be convenient to assume oneself to be the same principle as the absolute truth, but there is always the difference of the predominated and the predominator, as clearly pointed out here in this verse, which is grossly misused by the impersonalist. Brahma is factually seeing face to face his predominator Lord, who exists in his transcendental eternal form, even after the annihilation of the material creation. The form of the Lord, as seen by Brahma, existed before the creation of Brahma, and the material manifestation with all the ingredients and agents of material creation are also energetic expansions of the Lord. And after the exhibition of the Lord's energy comes to a close, what remains is the same personality of Godhead. Therefore, the form of the Lord exists in all circumstances of creation, maintenance, and annihilation. The Vedic hymns confirm this fact in the statement, Vasudevo va idam agra asinna brahma nacha shankara eko narayana asinna brahma nishana, etc. Before the creation, there was none except Vasudeva. There was neither Brahma nor Shankara. Only Narayan was there and no one else. Neither Brahma nor Ishana. Sripad Shankaracharya also confirms in his comments on the Bhagavad Gita that Narayana, or the personality of Godhead, is transcendental to all creation, but that the whole creation is the product of avyakta. Therefore, the difference between the created and the creator is always there, although both the creator and the created are of the same quality. The other feature of the statement is that the supreme truth is Bhagavan, or the personality of Godhead. The personality of Godhead and his kingdom have already been explained. The kingdom of Godhead is not void as conceived by the impersonalists. The Vaikuntha planets are full of transcendental variegatedness, including the four-handed residents of those planets, with great opulence of wealth and prosperity, and there are even airplanes and other amenities required for high-grade personalities. Therefore, the personality of Godhead exists before the creation, and he exists with all transcendental variegatedness in the Vaikuntha Lokas. The Vaikuntha Lokas, also accepted in the Bhagavad Gita as being of the Sanatana nature, are not annihilated even after the annihilation of the manifested cosmos. Those transcendental planets are of a different nature altogether, and that nature is not subjected to the rules and regulations of material creation, maintenance, or annihilation. The existence of the personality of Godhead implies the existence of the Vaikuntha Lokas, as the existence of a king implies the existence of a kingdom. In various places in Srimad Bhagavatam and in other revealed scriptures, the existence of the personality of Godhead is mentioned. For example, in the Srimad Bhagavatam 2.8.10, Maharaj Parikshit asks, Sachapi yatra purusho vishvastit yub payabhaya yayaha muktvat ma maya mayesha sheti sarva guhashayaha. How does the personality of Godhead, the cause of creation, maintenance, and annihilation, who is always freed from the influence of the illusory energy, and is the controller of the same, lie in everyone's heart? Similar also is a question of Viduras. Tatvanam bhagavam tesham katidha pratishankramaha tatremam ka upasiran ka uswid anusherate. Sridhar Swami explains this in his notes. During the annihilation of the creation, who serves the Lord, lying on the Shesha, etc. During the annihilation of the creation, who serves the Lord, lying on the Shesha, etc. This means that the transcendental Lord, with all his name, fame, quality, and paraphernalia, exists eternally. The same confirmation is also in the Kashi Kanda of the Skanda Purana, in connection with Dhruva Charita. It is said there, Nat chanvante piyad bhakta mahatyam pralayapadi ato chuta kile loke saeka sarvago vayaha. Even the devotees of the personality of Godhead are not annihilated during the period of the entire annihilation of the material world, not to speak of the Lord himself. The Lord is ever existent in all three stages of material change. The impersonalist adduces no activity in the Supreme, but in this discussion between Brahma and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord is said to have activities also, as he has his form and quality. The activities of Brahma and other demigods during the maintenance of the creation are to be understood as the activities of the Lord. The king or the head executive of a state may not be seen in the government offices, for he may be engaged in royal comforts. Yet it should be understood that everything is being done under his direction and everything is at his command. The personality of Godhead is never formless, In the material world, he may not be visible in his personal form to the less intelligent class of men, and therefore he may sometimes be called formless. But actually, he is always in his eternal form in his Vaikuntha planets, as well as in other planets of the universes as different incarnations. The example of the sun is very appropriate in this connection. The sun in the night may not be visible to the eyes of men in the darkness, but the sun is visible wherever it has risen. That the sun is not visible to the eyes of the inhabitants of a particular part of the earth does not mean that the sun has no form. In the Brihat Aranyaka Upanishad 1.4.1, there is the hymn, Mai Vedam Agra Asit Purusha Vidaha. This mantra indicates the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna even before the appearance of the Purusha incarnation. In the Bhagavad Gita 15.18, it is said that Lord Krishna is Purushottam because he is the Supreme Purusha, transcendental even to the Purusha Akshara and the Purusha Shara. The Akshara Purush, or the Mahavishnu, throws his glance over Prakriti, or material nature, but the Purushottam existed even before that. The Brihat Aranyaka Upanishad therefore confirms the statement of the Bhagavad Gita that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Person, Purushottama. Hare Krishna. In some of the Vedas, it is also said that in the beginning only the impersonal Brahman existed. However, according to this verse, the impersonal Brahman, which is the glowing effulgence of the body of the Supreme Lord, may be called the immediate cause, but the cause of all causes, or the remote cause, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord's impersonal feature is existent in the material world because by material senses or material eyes, the Lord cannot be seen or perceived. One has to spiritualize the senses before one can expect to see or perceive the Supreme Lord. But he is always engaged in his personal capacity, and he is eternally visible to the inhabitants of Vaikuntha Loka, eye to eye. Therefore, he is materially impersonal, just as the executive head of the state may be impersonal in the government offices, although he is not impersonal in the government house. Similarly, the Lord is not impersonal in his abode, which is always nirastakukam, as stated in the very beginning of Bhagavatam. Therefore, both the impersonal and personal features of the Lord are acceptable, as mentioned in the revealed scriptures. This personality of Godhead is very emphatically explained in the Bhagavad Gita in connection with the verse Brahmano hi pratishtaham. That's from Bhagavad Gita 14:27. Therefore, in all ways, the confidential part of spiritual knowledge is realization of the personality of Godhead and not his impersonal Brahman feature. One should therefore have this ultimate aim of realization not in the impersonal feature but in the personal feature of the absolute truth. The example of the sky within the pot and the sky outside the pot may be helpful to the student for his realization of the all-pervading quality of the cosmic consciousness of the absolute truth. But that does not mean that the individual part and parcel of the Lord becomes the supreme by a false claim. It means only that the conditioned soul is a victim of the illusory energy in her last snare. To claim to be one with the cosmic consciousness of the Lord is the last trap set by the illusory energy, or Daivi Maya. Even in the impersonal existence of the Lord, as it is in the material creation, one should aspire for personal realization of the Lord, and that is the meaning of Pascharaham Yare Tachcha Yo Visheshetya Sosmiham. I'll repeat that. Even in the impersonal existence of the Lord, as it is in the material creation, one should aspire for personal realization of the Lord, and that is the meaning of Pascharaham Yare Tachcha Yo Visheshetya Sosmiham. Paschad, at the end, aham, the personality of Godhead, yet, all these, etat, creation, also, ya, everything, avashishyata, remains, Sa, that Asmi, I am, personality of Godhead. Even in the impersonal existence of the Lord, as it is in the material creation, one should aspire for personal realization of the Lord. And that is the meaning of Pascharaham Yaretachcha Yovishishyeta Sosmyaham. Brahmaji also accepted the same truth when he was instructing Narada. He said, Soyam te bihitas tata bhagavan vishvabhavanaha. Bhagavatam 2:750. There is no other cause of all causes than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari. Therefore, this verse, Aham Eva, never indicates anything other than the Supreme Lord. And one should therefore follow the path of the Brahma Sampradaya, or the path from Brahmaji to Narada, to Vyasadeva, etc., and make it a point in life to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, or Lord Krishna. This very confidential instruction to the pure devotees of the Lord was also given to Arjuna and to Brahma in the beginning of the creation. The demigods like Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwar, Indra, Chandra, and Varuna are undoubtedly different forms of the Lord for execution of different functions. The different elemental ingredients of material creation, as well as the multifarious energies, also may be of the same personality of Godhead. But the root of all of them is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. One should be attached to the root of everything rather than bewildered by the branches and leaves. That is the instruction given in this verse. Clear enough, right? So you're in the right place. Chant Hare Krishna. And now I'm going to read to you from the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, because in the Adi Lila, chapter 1, starting on text 53, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami also quotes the Catur Shloki Bhagavatam. And I'm going to read you the commentary from that section as well, to Aham Evasam Evagre, Nan Yat Yat Sarasat Param Pascharaham Yeditascha Yovishisheta Sosmyaham. Translation: prior to the cosmic creation, only I existed and no phenomena exist, either gross, subtle, or primordial. What did I win? Oh, thank you. Prior to the cosmic creation, only I exist and no phenomena exist, either gross, subtle, or primordial. After creation, only I exist in everything, and after annihilation, only I remain eternally. Ready?
Yes.
It's nice, right?
Yes.
Nothing to do but hear. Purport. Aham means I. Therefore, the speaker who is saying Aham, I, must have his own have his own personality. The Mayavadi philosophers interpret this word Aham as referring to the impersonal Brahman. The Mayavadis are very proud of their grammatical knowledge, but any person who has actual knowledge of grammar can understand that Aham, I, and that Aham means I, and that I refers to a personality. Therefore, the personality of Godhead speaking to Brahma uses Aham while describing his own transcendental form. Aham has a specific meaning. It is not a vague term that can be whimsically interpreted. Aham, when spoken by Krishna, refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and nothing else. Before the creation and after its dissolution, only the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his associates exist. There is no existence of the material elements. This is confirmed in the Vedic literature. Vasudevo va idam agra asinna brahmana cha shankaraha. The meaning of this mantra is that before creation there was no existence of Brahma or Shiva, for only Vishnu existed. Vishnu exists in his abode, the Vaikunthas. There are innumerable Vaikuntha planets in the spiritual sky, and on each of them Vishnu resides with his associates and his paraphernalia. It is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that although the creation is periodically dissolved, there is another abode, which is never dissolved. The word creation refers to the material creation because in the spiritual world everything exists eternally, and there is no creation or dissolution. The Lord indicates herein that before the material creation he existed in fullness with all transcendental opulences, including all strength, all wealth, all beauty, all knowledge, all fame, and all renunciation. If one thinks of a king, he automatically thinks of his secretaries, ministers, military commanders, palaces, and so on. Since a king has such opulences, one can simply try to imagine the opulences of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When the Lord says aham, therefore, it is to be understood that he exists with full potency, including all opulences. The word yat refers to Brahman, the impersonal effulgence of the Lord. In the Brahma Samhita 540, it is said, Tad Brahma Nishkalam Anantam Ashesha Bhutam. The Brahman effulgence expands unlimitedly. Just as the sun is a localized planet with the sunshine expanding unlimitedly from that source, so the Absolute Truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead with his effulgence of energy, Brahman, expanding unlimitedly. From that Brahman energy the creation appears, just as a cloud appears in sunshine. From the cloud comes rain, from the rain comes vegetation, and from the vegetation come fruits and flowers, which are the basis of subsistence for many other forms of life. Similarly, the effulgent bodily luster of the Supreme Lord is the cause of the creation of infinite universes. The Brahman effulgence is impersonal, but the cause of that energy is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. From him, in his abode, the Vaikunthas, this Brahma Jyoti emanates. He is never impersonal. Since impersonalists cannot understand the source of the Brahman energy, they mistakenly choose to think this impersonal Brahman the ultimate or absolute goal. But as stated in the Upanishads, one has to penetrate the impersonal effulgence to see the face of the Supreme Lord. If one desires to reach the source of the sunshine, he has to travel through the sunshine to reach the sun and then meet the predominating deity there. The Absolute Truth is the Supreme Person, Bhagavan, as Srimad Bhagavatam explains. Sat means effect. Asat means cause. And Param refers to the ultimate truth, which is transcendental to cause and effect. The cause of the creation is called Mahatattva, or total material energy, and its effect is the creation itself. But neither cause nor effect existed in the beginning. They emanated from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as did the energy of time. This is stated in the Vedanta Sutra, Janmad Yasayataha. The source of birth of the cosmic manifestation, or Mahatattva, is the personality of Godhead. This is confirmed throughout Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita. In the Bhagavad Gita 10.8, the Lord says, Aham sarvasya prabhavaha. I am the fountainhead of all emanations. The material cosmos, being temporary, is sometimes manifest and sometimes unmanifest, but its energy emanates from the Supreme Absolute Lord. Before the creation, there was neither cause nor effect, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead existed with his full opulence and energy. The words Paschadaham indicate that the Lord exists after the dissolution of the cosmic manifestation. When the material world is dissolved, the Lord still exists personally in the Vaikunthas. During the creation, the Lord also exists as he is in the Vaikunthas, and he also exists as the Supersoul within the material universes. This is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita 537. Goloka eva nivasati. Although he is perfectly and eternally present in Goloka Vrindavan and Vaikuntha, he is nevertheless all-pervading, akilatma bhutaha. The all-pervading feature of the Lord is called the Supersoul. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said, Aham kritsnasya jagata prabhabaha. The cosmic manifestation is a display of the energy of the Supreme Lord. The material elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego, display the inferior energy of the Lord, and the living entities are his superior energy. Excuse me, I'll say that again. The material elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego, display the inferior energy of the Lord, and the living entities are his superior energy. Since the energy of the Lord is not different from him, in fact, everything that exists is Krishna in his impersonal feature. Sunshine, sunlight, and heat are not different from the sun, and yet simultaneously they are distinct energies of the sun. Similarly, the cosmic manifestation and the living entities are energies of the Lord, and they are considered to be simultaneously one with and different from him. The Lord therefore says, I am everything, because everything is his energy and therefore non-different from him. Yo vishishyeta sosmyaham indicates that the Lord is the balance that exists after the dissolution of the creation. The spiritual manifestation never vanishes. It belongs to the internal energy of the Supreme Lord and exists eternally. When the external manifestation is withdrawn, the spiritual activities in Goloka and the rest of the Vaikunthas continue, unrestricted by material time, which has no existence in the spiritual world. Therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita 15:6, it is said, Yadgatva na nivartante tadhama paramang mama. The abode from which no one returns to this material world is the supreme abode of the Lord. Hare Krishna. So what did you hear so far? What points stuck in your mind or your heart? Hare Krishna. Yes. Here comes the microphone.
So I joined in between. But there was one point which stuck in my mind and created a question. There was one statement where it said that Sat means effect and Asat is the cause. But we say Krishna is the cause of all causes. So, is Krishna then Asat? Because Prabhupada is telling Asat means cause.
Well, you think that Krishna is the... Pardon me?
No. Sat is effect, Asat means cause.
And so what's the difficulty in that? Because the verse is saying that just generally that Krishna is the source of the cause and the effect. And that he begins the cause and the effect are both coming from him. Ahamevasame nan yat sarasat param. That he's the originator of the cause and the effect. We can move some of those chairs out of the way so anyone joining, or you can come closer. There's a few spots closer up if you'd like to join. Okay. Yes.
The point that stuck in my mind was there was a statement that said that creation means it refers to material creation because everything in spiritual world remains eternally. So the word creation doesn't necessarily apply for the spiritual world.
Nice. Yes.
The point which struck me was where it said the confidential instruction is to follow Brahma Sampradaya.
Yes, Gandharvi, thank you.
So, Prabhuji, how do we understand that the cause and the effect are the same? Because in the material world,
philosophically, within the effect, the cause is present. When you see something like a car accident, for example, there's an effect, and you can surmise the cause by looking at the effect. So, although they're separated by time, they're one and the same because they're connected to each other intimately. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I have a question. Towards the end of the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam 2.9.33, it was mentioned that demigods like Brahma, and there was also mention of Vishnu as a demigod. And is the Vishnu referred over there is the Guna avatar, or is it the...
Well, let's see the section you're looking at.
2.9.33, towards the end of the purport. Srimad Bhagavatam 2.9.33.
Mm-hmm.
Towards the end of the purport, it says demigods like Brahma, Vishnu. Right there, demigods like Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara.
Demigods like Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, Indra, Chandra, and Varuna are undoubtedly different forms of the Lord for execution of different functions. Yes?
So my question is, Vishnu as mentioned over there, which Vishnu? Is it it's considered as a demigod over here, so is it the Guna avatar or?
In this context it can be either.
Even the Shirodakshayi Vishnu?
Yes, because ultimately in this context, ahameva sameva agre, we're talking about the cause of everything. And Bhagavad Gita at the end of the 10th chapter, Krishna says, with the spark of my splendor I maintain the whole universe in a sense. And there he's talking about the avatars that create the material world and so forth. And he's referring to them as small parts of his splendor. And so, expanding from Krishna or is Balaram, and from Balaram comes Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Vasudeva, Aniruddha, and then there's Mul Sankarshan, and then the second set of the Chatur Vyuha, and then there's expansions into the avatars that create the material world and so forth. And all of them are expansions of Krishna, and all of them are subordinate to Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. And the point that stuck with me was...
Even just Balaram, in the story of when Krishna recreates the cowherd boys and calves after Brahma has stolen them. And there's some mysterious things going on in Vrindavan. For instance, the parents of all the children become much more attached to them than they ever were before. And even the cows and the bulls become more attached to the calves. And actually they had been weaned off their parents, but the bulls and the cows came running after their offspring, and they began licking their bodies and becoming extremely affectionate towards them. And Balaram was observing all these things, and he thought, what's causing this? Is there some kind of mystic power of a Rakshasa? Or maybe it's of some kind of Gandharva who's creating this kind of mystic potency. And then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains how Krishna unveils one by one the different layers that are covering even Balaram's vision of seeing what's going on in the pastime. And then Balaram can understand, Krishna's causing all this. It's a special Leela. And there's a way in which then even his first expansion, Balaram, is an expansion and subjected to the supreme power of Sri Krishna. What to speak of all the other expansions of the expansion, so forth. Does that help?
Yes, Maharaj, thank you.
Okay.
And the point that stuck with me was at the beginning how it was mentioning about the two eyes, I as in the predominator and the predominated, and how it actually completely refutes the theory of the impersonalists. That was a very interesting point.
Yeah, you have to be really stubborn to say that I'm the controller and the feeder of every living entity. Otherwise, it's really commonsensical that there is God and I'm not Him. And if one can't admit that and tries all kinds of word jugglery, then this is what Prabhupada describes here as the last snare of Maya.
So, Prabhuji,
yes.
I have one quick question. Then the last sentence, one should be attached to the root of everything rather than bewildered by the branches and leaves. But usually when we see a tree, we see the flower or fruit and get attached to it. We never see the root and say that, I like this. So how do we like really see the root in our day-to-day lives? Because our nature is to see the fruits and the flowers. And
Sri Kumar is about, could you take this down about 10%? The gain, it's ringing over the top. Because, as Prabhupada said in the purport earlier, and I repeated it for emphasis, even in the impersonal existence of the Lord, it is as it is in the material creation, one should aspire for personal realization of the Lord, and that is the meaning of Paschataham Yare Tachcha Yovishisheta Sosmiham. In the second canto of the Bhagavatam, when Shukadeva Goswami is speaking to Maharaj Parikshit about the universal form of the Lord, Srila Prabhupada explains in his purports that when one begins to see the universe as personal, then one begins to develop gratitude and understand that the flowing rivers and the trees which are offering fruits and so forth are something benevolent, which implies there's personality behind it. I don't know about you, but when I look at an avocado, I get all warm and fuzzy inside because there's nothing better than an avocado in this world, practically. And then I look at it and I think, what a perfect design. And then I feel grateful for the avocado. I mean, one could think like that and see that trees have their arms outstretched and they're offering unlimited fruits and so forth. Who thought of this arrangement? Nature, when it's not meddled with too much, tends to provide everything in abundance. And when there's sacrifice going on, and it's easier to see actually the benevolent design by the Lord and appreciate that there's generosity being extended here. When there's no sacrifice going on and there's droughts and there's all kinds of pollution being put into the environment and interruptions of ecosystems that should naturally go on and things like that, which is sort of the modern way of thinking about nature, that let us conquer nature rather than appreciating the fact that she's providing so many things and that it's coming from benevolent source. So when one sees the energy, for instance, Prabhupada gives the example, if you have a daughter and you miss her and then all of a sudden you come home and you see her shoes on the porch, then even without seeing the daughter, then you see the shoes, then your heart warms and you think, oh, she's home. And you think of your daughter. So when a devotee sees the energy of the Lord, he or she is always aware that this is, it's not different from the Lord. It's an emanation from the Lord. It's very encouraging, this whole purport, because the energies of the Lord are everywhere. And we're never out of contact with the Lord. Satyadev Prabhu was talking about that on our drive down today, about we're never out of contact with Krishna at any time because He's everything and within everything. The Vishnu Purana talks about how just as the heat and fire, heat and light emanate from fire, it's natural energies that come from fire. So similarly, all the energies we see in this universe are emanations from the Supreme Lord. And so we can appreciate that. And that's why we hear this. This is Sambandha Gyan, to understand our relationship with Krishna and how we never have to be separated from Him at any time. We never are separated. Only by consciousness, which we'll hear in one of the next verses, in the next verse, where Krishna says that we only become separated from His energies when we disconnect our own consciousness from Him. And reconnecting to Him means that we're in our natural position. Who is next? Srivas Pandit Prabhu? And for those wonderful devotees who have joined us online, we welcome you. Thank you very much. And if you'd like to text in, which we'd love it if you would, just to say Hari Bol even, the number is 650-245-7018. That's 650-245-7018. Our operators are standing by right now to take your text message. The phone lines are also open if you'd like to call in. And a comment or question in the class, you can just get on the conference call and it's open to you. Were you next, Srivas Pandit Prabhu? We have a point, please.
So in regards to the question by Sudeep, where demigods like Vishnu and why Vishnu is mentioned, Prabhuji, also my understanding was that later in the third canto, there are demigods who control every aspect of our body, like Indra controls the arms. And then there is also mention of Vishnu who controls the legs. So, and Srila Prabhupada writes that he's a different Vishnu who's a demigod who controls the legs. So can that be also a reason why it is included here, Prabhuji?
Well, it can be. I don't know if it's specifically, but it could come. Mine was a broad sweeping comment that all the expansions, whatever they may be, demigods or not, are being referred to in this verse and commentary as emanations from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And ultimately, all the demigods are, the names of the demigods are also names of Krishna. Although we say in the second offense of the Lord, based on the verse, Yastu Narayanam Devam Brahma Rudradi Daivatai Samatvenaya Viksheta Yapashandi Bhavedruvam. It's a fixed principle that if one thinks that the demigods are on an equal level with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is a Pashandi, which isn't a good thing. But at the same time, we say, one who, second offense of the Lord, consider the names of demigods like Lord Brahma or Lord Shiva to be equal or independent of the names of Lord Vishnu. They actually are names of the Lord. They're just borrowed, and they're using their powers in certain ways. But they're all emanations from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they derive their power from Him.
And also in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, it's like the Shiva and Brahma are praised as good as Krishna and not different from him in one respect. So that
and especially as mentioned by the Acharyas, like Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, when they say Lord Shiva is non-different from Krishna, they say, just like when they say the spiritual master is non-different from Krishna. Sakshad haridvainastamasta shastra ruktastata bhavyate evatabhi kintu prabhurya priya evatasya vande guroshi charanadavindam. He's dear. He's non-different because he's so dear. That's Lord Shiva is Vaishnavanam yata shambhu. He's the greatest Vaishnav. He's the most dear to Krishna. And therefore, he's considered to be non-different. Yes. Shraddha, did you get a microphone? You had something. Okay, go ahead, and then Shraddha will be next. Sounds good. Go ahead. Use a different one.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
So I was asking that in the purport, Prabhupada mentions that impersonal attitude, the desire to become one with the Lord, it is the last snare of Maya. So why is that? So it appears that even an impersonalist is trying to escape Maya. He appears on a better platform than a materialist, at least. So,
yeah, in some contexts, he is, like in the verse Mahat Sevam Dwara Mahurva Muktes. It's mentioned that there are transcendentalists. They're both impersonalists and personalists and so forth. At least someone's come to understand that I'm not a part of this material world. Tries to get out. But then there's a way in which one can become snared by Maya, thinking that, oh, now I'll become the Supreme Lord, rather than understanding properly that I'm a servant of the Lord. So there are philosophies that can bewilder a person, even who's on the transcendental path. And taking to the transcendental path then becomes acquainted with a philosophy that equates the Supreme Lord and the living entity. And then one's intelligence becomes bewildered. And that is not a sustainable situation. Yene ravindaksha vimuktamaninas tvayasta bhavad avashudha puraya aruya krishnena paramparam tata patantyato nadrita yushmarangrayaha. In the Bhagavatam, the demigods praying to Lord Krishna within the womb say that until one revives one's relationship with the Lord, that whatever imagined liberation one attains, even through very hard work and difficult austerities, is a product of impure intelligence, and therefore one will fall down from that position. So even in the transcendental realm, there's ways in which one can become waylaid. And in the Bhagavad Gita, 12th chapter, Krishna talks about how he doesn't say that... now there's a difference between Mayavadi, as what we call, this is the word, the Vaishnavas use this word, Mayavad, that those who those who are contaminated with the idea that God is subjected to Maya. And it means that we're God, but we forgot. And when we remember, then we become God again. Actually, just hearing about it is contaminating. When we were studying the Tattva last year and listening to Jiva Goswami's arguments against Mayavad's philosophy, at the end, some of the devotees commented, even hearing the arguments against it, there's so much word jugglery in it, and the idea is so hateful to devotees that one is the same as the Lord, and it kills the devotional spirit, that idea. But so there are Mayavads, and there are also impersonalists. And in the Bhagavad Gita 12th chapter, Krishna mentions how somebody who's a transcendentalist and who's impersonal, in other words, they haven't realized the personality of Godhead, but they've understood that the Lord's energies, and they have an impersonal conception. He says that after a long time, they can come to understand the personality of Godhead. But it's a very difficult path, he says. Klesho dikartarastesham avyakta sakta chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukam dehavad viravapyate. A difficult path. And Prabhupada mentions there that one who starts in that way may have a troublesome road forward, more so than someone who starts directly in the bhakti path. Shraddha Devi Dasi.
So, Maharaj, I was also looking at the same sentence that Gandharvika Mataji was looking at, where Prabhupada says one should be attached to the root of everything rather than being bewildered by the branches and leaves. And I was actually admiring the way Prabhupada writes. Instead of just saying that, be attached to the roots and not be attached to the branches, he kind of adds a qualifier there and says, rather than being bewildered by the branches and the leaves. So I really admired that. And to the question that Gandharvika Mataji asked, that, we tend to get attached to the fruits and flowers, and so how do we think about the root? I was just thinking about the Shravanadi Jal missive that you send in the morning today, and where all of us face problem while we are chanting with the mind going away, but then in the end you said that you have to apply your spiritual intelligence. And once we know that what's going on over there, then immediately the equation changed. Rather than being controlled by the mind, the senses become our children, and we have to not only take care of them, but also to discipline them. So along the same lines, I was thinking we could also apply our intelligence to how to constantly remember Krishna, even while looking at the leaves and the branches, because if you read like chapter 10th of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says all the time, I'm taste of the water, I'm among the horses, I'm Ucheshravas, anything that nice that you see. And my sister, who's a botanist, she used to teach her subject just like that. But when she became exposed to reading the Bhagavad Gita, now she says that when I look inside the microscope, I just admire God and see how wonderfully He creates the things, And she started saying that to the children also, to her students as well, do that. So I was just, tying this to what you said in the morning, that intelligence, and that intelligence we get from Prabhupada's books and also from attending the classes.
Thank you very much. Nice comments. I was remembering also in the beginning of the 15th chapter, as you know very well, Krishna describes the material world as a banyan tree, and then describes the leaves and the branches. The leaves are the Vedic hymns, And there's a way in which people become bewildered by those leaves, the Vedic hymns, because there are prescriptions for elevation in the material world. And of course, Vyasadeva, edited all that, put it all together, and then Narada Muni said, you've misguided everybody. Just show them this direct thing, because otherwise their minds will become bewildered by all the leaves on the tree of the material world. And narupam asyeha tatopa labhyate nanto nachadir nachasam pratishta. That while we're in the tree, the material world, we can't see its form, we can't see its end or its beginning even. We're just in it. I was listening the other day, Prabhupada was saying about Om Ajnanati Mirandasya. He said, we're born in the world, we don't know much at all about the material world. Even if you grow up and become a big scientist, you still don't know much about it. And we don't know anything about the spiritual world. So really in complete ignorance. And we're in the middle of that tree, and all we see in front of us is Coca-Cola. I want Coca-Cola. And that's, I see that's the next thing. And to go deeper and to hear, the transcendental sounds, as we're hearing repeatedly in this verse, and it's affecting us, about how there's a spiritual world which is never destroyed. Na tad bhasha te shuryo na shashanko na pavakaha yagatva na nivartente tad dhamma paramamama. You don't have to come back and so forth. And it's not illuminated by electricity. And, it's self-illuminated and so forth. This Sambandha Gyan, it calls to us. When we hear about it, we want to go there. Catalog came in the mail today. And it just happened to be sitting on the table, and it was open and I looked in there, and there was because I'm traveling a lot, I've had the same bag for about 20 years. It's coming apart in every way, but I can't get rid of it because, for many reasons. But I saw another bag in there, and then I thought, okay, I want that. My mind said that, I want that. And then I thought, why do I want it? Because I saw it. That's why they put the catalog out. So here, look, Jiva, over here. And next thing you want it. And so when we hear about the spiritual world, and we hear about the root cause of everything, Krishna, it's attractive. And it's natural. We want to go there. So we can cultivate that. Let's hear a little bit more. Because we're on the Catur Sloki, and we've done the first one. And now let's hear the next one. Now, if there's any extra commentary, then there's a special room designated. And we're heading there now. Okay. This is text number 34. And this verse was one we referred to earlier about, anyway, we'll just read the verse. Pratirtam yat pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani tad vidyadatmano mayam yatha bhaso yatatamaha Rite, without. Artam, value. Yat, that which. Pratiyeta, appears to be. Na, not. Pratiyeta, appears to be. Cha, and. Atmani, in relation to me. Tat, that. Vidyat, you must know. Atmanaha, my. Mayam, illusory energy. Yata, just as. Abhasaha, the reflection. Yata, as. Tamaha, the darkness. Welcome, everyone. Nice to see you all. Thanks for coming. Translation, O Brahma, whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relation to me, has no reality. Know it as my illusory energy, that reflection, which appears to be in darkness. Please repeat. O Brahma.
O Brahma.
Whatever appears to be of any value.
Whatever appears to be of any value.
If it is without relation to me.
If it is without relation to me.
Has no reality.
Has no reality.
Know it as my illusory energy.
Know it as my illusory energy.
That reflection.
That reflection.
Which appears to be in darkness.
That appears to be in darkness.
Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Ki.
Jai.
In the previous verse, it has already been concluded that in any stage of the cosmic manifestation, its appearance, its sustenance, its growth, its interactions of different energies, its deterioration, and its disappearance, all has its basic relation with the existence of the personality of Godhead. And as such, whenever there is forgetfulness of this prime relation with the Lord, and whenever things are accepted as real without being related to the Lord, that conception is called a product of the illusory energy of the Lord. Because nothing can exist without the Lord, it should be known that the illusory energy is also an energy of the Lord. I repeat, because nothing can exist without the Lord, because nothing can exist without the Lord, it should be known that the illusory energy is also an energy of the Lord. May I repeat one more time? Yes. Because nothing can exist without the Lord, it should be known that the illusory energy is also an energy of the Lord. That ought to keep you Krishna conscious. The right conclusion of dovetailing everything in relationship with the Lord is called Yoga Maya, or the energy of union. And the wrong conception of detaching a thing from its relationship with the Lord is called the Lord's Daivi Maya, or Mahamaya. Both the Mayas also have connections with the Lord because nothing can exist without being related to Him. As such, the wrong conception of detaching relationships from the Lord is not false, but illusory. Misconceiving one thing for another thing is called illusion. For example, accepting a rope as a snake is illusion, but the rope is not false. The rope as it exists in the front of the illusioned person is not at all false, but the acceptance is illusory. Therefore, the wrong conception of accepting this material manifestation as being divorced from the energy of the Lord is illusion, but it is not false. And this illusory conception is called the reflection of reality in the darkness of ignorance. And this illusory conception is called the reflection of the reality in the darkness of ignorance. Anything that appears as apparently not being produced out of my energy, quote unquote, is called Maya. The conception that the living entity is formless or that the Supreme Lord is formless is also illusion. In the Bhagavad Gita 2:12, it was said by the Lord that in the midst of the battlefield that the warriors standing in front of Arjuna himself, and even the Lord had all existed before. They were existing on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and they would all continue to be individual personalities in the future also, even after the annihilation of the present body, and even after being liberated from the bondage of material existence. In all circumstances, the Lord and the living entity are individual personalities, and the personal features of both the Lord and the living entities are never abolished. Only the influence of the illusory energy, the reflection of light in the darkness, can, by the mercy of the Lord, be removed. Only the influence of the illusory energy, the reflection of light in the darkness, can, by the mercy of the Lord, be removed. In the material world, the light of the sun is also not independent, nor is that of the moon. The real source of light is the Brahmajyoti, which diffuses light from the transcendental body of the Lord, and the same light is reflected in varieties of light: the light of the sun, the light of the moon, the light of fire, and the light of electricity. So the identity of the self as being unconnected with the Supreme Self, the Lord, is also illusion. And the false claim, I am the Supreme, is the last illusory snare of the same Maya, or the external energy of the Lord. The Vedanta Sutra in the very beginning affirms that everything is born from the Supreme. And thus, as explained in the previous verse, all individual living entities are born from the energy of the Supreme Living Being, the Personality of Godhead. Brahma himself was born from the energy of the Lord, and all other living entities are born from the energy of the Lord through the agency of Brahma. None of them has any existence without being dovetailed with the Supreme Lord. The independence of the individual living entity is not real independence, but is just the reflection of the real independence existing in the Supreme Being, the Lord. The false claim of supreme independence by the conditioned souls is illusion, and this conclusion is admitted in this verse. Persons with a poor fund of knowledge become illusioned, and therefore the so-called scientists, physiologists, empiric philosophers, etc., become dazzled by the glaring reflection of the sun, moon, electricity, etc., and deny the existence of the Supreme Lord, putting forward theories and different speculations about the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of everything material. The medical practitioner may deny the existence of the soul and the physiological bodily construction of an individual person, but he cannot give life to a dead body, even though all the mechanisms of the body exist even after death. The psychologist makes a serious study of the psychological conditions of the brain, as if the construction of the cerebral lump were the machine of the functioning mind. But in the dead body, the psychologist cannot bring back the function of the mind. These scientific studies of the cosmic manifestation or the bodily construction independent of the Supreme Lord are different reflective intellectual gymnastics only. But at the end, they are all illusion and nothing more. All such advancement of science and knowledge in the present context of material civilization is but an action of the covering influence of the illusory energy. The illusory energy has two phases of existence, namely the covering influence and the throwing influence. By the throwing influence, the illusory energy throws the living entities into the darkness of ignorance, and by the covering influence, she covers the eyes of men with a poor fund of knowledge about the existence of the Supreme Person who enlightened the Supreme Individual Living Being, Brahma. The identity of Brahma with the Supreme Lord is never claimed herein, and therefore such a foolish claim by the man with a poor fund of knowledge is another display of the illusory energy of the Lord. The Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita 16:18-20 that demoniac persons who deny the existence of the Lord are thrown more and more into the darkness of ignorance, and that such demoniac persons transmigrate life after life without any knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The sane man, however, is enlightened in the disciplic succession from Brahmaji, who is personally instructed by the Lord, or in the disciplic succession from Arjuna, who is personally instructed by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita. He accepts this statement of the Lord. Aham sarvasya prabhavo matak sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddhabhava samanvitaha. The Lord is the original source of all emanations, and everything that is created, maintained, and annihilated exists by the energy of the Lord. The sane man knows this. The sane man who knows this is actually learned, and therefore he becomes a pure devotee of the Lord, engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Although the reflectory energy of the Lord displays various illusions to the eyes of persons with a poor fund of knowledge, the sane man knows clearly that the Lord can act even from far, far beyond our vision by his different energies, just as fire can diffuse heat and light from a distant place. In the medical science of the ancient sages known as the Ayurveda, there is definite acceptance of the Lord's supremacy in the following words: Jagad yonir anichasya chid anantaika rupinaha pumsosti prakritir nitya pratichayeva vasvataha achetanapi chaitanya yogina paramatmanaha akarod vishvam akilam anityam nataka krityam. Now you can quote from the Ayurveda, Sanskrit. There is one Supreme Person who is the progenitor of this cosmic manifestation and whose energy acts as Prakriti, or the material nature, dazzling like a reflection. But such illusory action of Prakriti, by such illusory energy of Prakriti, even dead matter is caused to move by the cooperation of living energy of the Lord. And the material world appears like a dramatic performance to the ignorant eyes. The ignorant person, therefore, may even be a scientist or physiologist in the drama of Prakriti, while the sane person knows Prakriti as the illusory energy of the Lord. By such a conclusion, as confirmed by the Bhagavad Gita, it is clear that the living entities are also a display of the Lord's superior energy, Paraprakriti, just as the material world is a display of the Lord's inferior energy, Aparaprakriti. The supreme energy of the Lord cannot be as good as the Lord, although there is very little difference between the energy and the possessor of the energy, or the fire and the heat. Fire is possessed of heat, but heat is not fire. This simple thing is not understood by the man with a poor fund of knowledge who falsely claims that the fire and the heat are the same. This energy of the fire, namely heat, is explained here as a reflection and not directly fire. Therefore, the living energy represented by the living entities is the reflection of the Lord and never the Lord himself. Being the reflection of the Lord, the existence of the living entity is dependent on the Supreme Lord, who is the original light. This material energy may be compared to darkness, as actually it is darkness, and the activities of the living entities in the darkness are reflections of the original light. The Lord should be understood by the context of this verse. Non-dependence of both the energies of the Lord is explained as Maya, or illusion. No one can make a solution of the darkness of ignorance simply by the reflection of light. Similarly, no one can come out of material existence simply by the reflected light of the common man. One has to receive the light from the original light itself. The reflection of sunlight in the darkness is unable to drive out the darkness, but the sunlight outside the reflection can drive out the darkness completely. In darkness, no one can see things in a room. Therefore, a person in the dark is afraid of snakes and scorpions, although there may not be such things. But in the light, the things in the room can be clearly seen, and the fear of snakes and scorpions is at once removed. Therefore, one has to take shelter of the light of the Lord, as in the Bhagavad Gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam, and not the reflective personalities who have no touch with the Lord. No one should hear Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam from a person who does not believe in the existence of the Lord. Such a person is already doomed, and any association with such a doomed person makes the associator also doomed. According to the Padma Purana, within the material compass, there are innumerable material universes, and all of them are full of darkness. Any living being, beginning from the Brahmas, there are innumerable Brahmas in innumerable universes, to the insignificant ant, are all born in darkness, and they require factual light from the Lord to see him directly, just as the sun can see only by the direct light of the sun. No lamp or man-made torchlight, however powerful it may be, can help one see the sun. The sun reveals itself. Therefore, the action of different energies of the Lord, or the personality of God in himself, can be realized by the light manifested by the causeless mercy of the Lord. I'm going to read that again. No lamp or man-made torchlight, however powerful it may be, can help one see the sun. The sun reveals itself. Therefore, the action of different energies of the Lord, or the personality of God in himself, can be realized by the light manifested by the causeless mercy of the Lord. The impersonalists say that God cannot be seen. God can be seen by the light of God and not by man-made speculations. Here this light is specifically mentioned as vidyat, which is an order by the Lord to Brahma. Now I'm going to read this again. I have this marked double times, triple time in my book because it's one of my favorite quotes in Prabhupada's books. This direct order of the Lord is a manifestation. Okay, here this light is specifically mentioned as vidyat, which is an order by the Lord to Brahma. This direct order of the Lord is a manifestation of his internal energy. And this particular energy is the means of seeing the Lord face to face. Not only Brahma, but anyone who may be graced by the Lord to see such merciful, direct internal energy can also realize the personality of Godhead without any mental speculation. Haribo! I was just thinking as we were rounding the corner of the last page coming in, what a joyful experience is to release this sound vibration into the environment. There's so many other vibrations that are being released every day. I was just at a couple of major corporations over the last week visiting, and I was just noticing how, everyone's working hard doing something useful, hopefully, but this kind of vibration is not being released into the environment in a regular way, or at least in a pervasive way. And Prabhupada's books are available, and we're trying to make them more and more available everywhere. The Bhagavatam, the Srimad Bhagavatam, putting on people's shelves. Of course, you can't make people read them. And even people who want to read them don't necessarily have time, at least in the beginning parts of their life. They're busy. So they don't get to release the spiritual potency that's in them by actually reading it or reading it to somebody else. And it just feels, I just feel satisfied releasing it into the environment. What to speak of the fact that there are pure devotees sitting here taking it in, then it becomes even more potent. But even if one were just to go sit outside of Google, for instance, or Intel, or Oracle, or Cisco, not to leave anybody out, and just sit there with a Bhagavatam all day. What if you did that right in the corner, just read Bhagavatam? Let it go into the environment. Certainly something miraculous would happen. Anyway, coming back to this last section, which I marked, you may have heard me repeat this before, but the direct order of the Lord can be taken by anyone in any situation of life. You just accept it, then you're actually connected to the internal potency of the Lord. And by that particular potency, one comes to see the Lord face to face. So the order comes down, and as a matter of fact, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave an order, Yare Dako Tari Kaha Krishnupadesh Amaragnaya Guru Hana Tare Desh. Anybody can take that up. You just take it. There's an order, I'll take it. And then you're connected. You have that connection to the internal potency. What'd you hear? Yes, Vittal Prabhu.
Prabhuji, there was this talk about fire, light, about the similarity and yet the difference. There was one very wonderful lecture by Srila Prabhupada where he says that, the car is Ford, but the person Ford is not car. So
right, car is a Ford, but the Ford is not a car.
Yeah,
the person Ford. Yeah, that's nice. Good examples. Satyade Prabhu.
What I heard was if we see things not in relationship to Krishna, or if we see ourselves and we see the world as separate from Krishna, that is Maya. And if we see ourselves and we see the world in relationship to Krishna, then we're in light. And that light is open to anyone who will receive it. We were reading 2 days ago in the Japanese Skype class. It's talking about the super soul and how Prabhupada mentions in there he says any common man actually can realize the super soul. he said, as soon as we surrender to the Lord, or we have an attitude of service, then the Supersoul begins to reveal himself, or can reveal himself. And what we're reading today is that's the only way we see God face to face, is when He gives us that revelation. So today I had a really, to me, a very pleasing interaction with my grandson Benchan, he'll be 3 at the end of this month. And I was just getting ready to come over to your house today, and I had just taken a shower and put on T-lock, and I don't often wear T-lock. So he looked at T-lock and he says, "What's that?" And I said, "It's called T-lock." "Why do you do that?" "Because I'm going to go to the temple and see Krishna." And then he said, "Well, why do you do that?" And I said, "Well, God, Krishna, He's living within the body and within everything. So we decorate the body as a temple because Krishna's there also." And I said to Benchan, I said, "Are you alive?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Where does your life come from?" "I don't know." And I said, "Your life, all life comes from Krishna." And I said, there was a fly on the window, and I said, "Is that fly alive?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Is the chair alive?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Is the plant alive?" And he says, "Yeah." And I said, and I folded my hands and I said, "Well, they're alive because Krishna is there. Their life's coming from Krishna." And I said, "You're alive because you're coming from Krishna. Your consciousness is coming from Krishna." And he goes, "Oh." And he was drinking some orange juice, and he said, "I offered my orange juice to Krishna." I said, "Oh, that was very nice." I said, "Well, where did the orange juice come from?" And he said, "From the oranges." And I said, "Well, where did the oranges come from?" And he said, "From Krishna." And it's so simple, our philosophy is so simple, but it's profoundly true. And if we miss that point, then any child can understand it, but we're so busy and bewildered by other ways of thinking that sometimes we can't see the simple things.
That reminds me of something that Sariputta said when actually he was quoting, I think, another devotee scientist, but he was pointing out that a common, simple person can easily accept the presence of God through the logic you were just presenting that Benchan had taken. Whereas someone who becomes an intellectual and a scientist and so forth can develop hundreds of ways to reject the idea that there's a divine source to everything and I'm being maintained by that. So, not to say that developing one's intellect or scientific research is not important or valid, but if it loses the connection, just like anything else, then it becomes illusory and not helpful. It can be bewildering instead. Thank you, Satya Prabhu. What else did you hear? Yes, Shamalangi. Did you get a dead microphone?
So I like the point where Prabhupada mentions that we should not hear Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita from non-devotees basically, and they are doomed, and if we associate, even we are doomed. Because I was thinking, before coming to Krishna consciousness also, it's not that I've never heard these instructions. Maybe in India, even relatives, they know partly, and colleagues, even we went to spiritual, some discussions, But they never entered into our heart. They stayed, they hit our ear and then were reflected back probably. So I like that point.
Yeah, and what you're expressing also is something, not only is it a point, but also you experienced it. It's something to experience, that when you come in contact with the truth, which is coming from the internal energy of the Lord. In other words, it's coming from Krishna. The idea of parampara, which Prabhupada mentioned here, is that the message from Krishna is then presented as it is. It's passed down. He mentioned Arjuna as being someone who heard it and then passed it down, has his disciplic succession in Brahma and so forth. And when it gets passed down in that way, then one feels the light and sees the light. The electricity is there, just like one copper wire connected to another goes all the way back to the power station. And one can overcome the limitations of the material senses by accepting the authority of Krishna and then representing that to others. Lavanya?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. I had a doubt. A lot of times I noticed that when we try to communicate Krishna consciousness to people, people are interested in the concept, but not in the Guru. Why Srila Prabhupada's books? I mean, there are so many other books. And we talk to them about parampara and everything. And sometimes they do listen to parampara. It may not be Gaudiya Vaishnava parampara. I want to understand why is it that sometimes people resist. All our books are basically English. Our Acharya wanted to reach out to those who couldn't read from the original text. He translated everything to English. For me, that was the biggest blessing, because for me, that was a language I could absorb. It really went in. For others, I find that their native tongue seems to be their biggest handicap to getting to Srila Prabhupada's books. They find the local preachers or speakers more attractive than Srila Prabhupada. And no matter how many times I explain that Srila Prabhupada is simple, he makes things so extremely simple. If only you, it's like medicine, try it. But then the trying, why is there such a strong resistance? And can you explain that to me? Is it Sukriti? Is it something else? Why do people not want to take this?
Yeah, that's a great science. But generally, because when I accept an authority, then I'm no longer the authority. But when I accept many different authorities, then I can present choose whichever one I want, and go on with my independent idea. And does it have to do with Sukriti? Generally, yes. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Bahunam Janmanamante Jnanamam Mam Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti Sa Mahatma Sadurlabha. That after many, many births and deaths, then one becomes a Jnani, which means he realizes that this material world's a fake out. And so he doesn't want to be involved in that anymore. But then out of many Jnanis, then one becomes actually a Bhakta. He surrenders to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And there's an accumulation of intuitive knowledge in the heart. It's not necessarily intellectual, but there's an intuition. And that comes from Sukriti, or qualification, partly by, actually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains in the teachings we heard earlier to Sanatana Goswami that somehow or other if one comes in contact with bhakti, bhakti begets bhakti. Bhakti doesn't come from any other source except for bhakti. And when one comes in contact specifically with devotees, because they carry bhakti in their hearts, this was Bhavad Vida Bhagavatas Tirta Bhuta Swayam Vibho Tirta Kurvan Tirtani Swantak Stena Gadabrita. Yudhishthira mentioned that to Vidura that you carry Krishna in your heart and you give him wherever you go. So when one comes in contact with devotees, one gets this kind of bhakti and mukhi sukriti, which qualifies one to... Actually, what happens is, according to the Brihan Naradiya Purana, that after an accumulation of this bhakti and mukhi sukriti in the heart, when there's enough, then Shraddha is born. And Shrad means heart, and Da means where you place something. So Why does one person become inclined and another not? Because, yes, there's a Gyata Sukriti first, and then there's an awakening of faith. And because of that faith, one wants to associate with devotees. And then for one who surrenders, surrender means that you become, you approach the Guru. The Guru means representative of Krishna. And you say, okay, I give up now. Arjuna had many ideas and speculations, and then after he calmed down a little bit, he realized, I don't know what to do. Then he surrendered to Krishna. And Krishna said, you sound like you're speaking like a learned person. Like some people, they quote all kinds of this, that, and the other thing, but you're actually speaking like a fool. And then he said, okay, now I'll tell you the way it is. And he explained it to him. Gandharvika?
Just one point to add to what she was saying, Prabhuji. Sometimes what happens is even if people come to ISKCON for a long time, they feel that if somebody else talks the same topic in Telugu or Tamil or Malayalam or any other language, they feel the connection because they're saying what same thing Prabhupada is saying, but it's in your mother tongue. Naturally, they get attracted towards it. So I think the only way, but the way in which they present may be the same concept, but the conclusion may not be the same.
Then there's
so Prabhupada said that, and just I thought I'll add this, Prabhupada was saying that how his books should be printed in all languages, and he also wanted preachers to preach eloquently in various languages so that they can take it. And he also made that the local temples, especially in India, make devotees of local speaking devotees and preach that way. So I just thought I'll add.
And in Montreal, they should have French speaking. Montreal. It's not Montreal. Montreal. Somebody corrected me once when I was there. Someone who would go to a different philosophy because it's culturally more appealing does not have pure faith. One who has pure faith will not be enamored of some other cultural presentation. So the real issue is the purity of the faith. However, it is also acceptable and mentioned in Shastra that people have their cultural preferences. And if Krishna consciousness is presented in such a way, for instance, if one has a guru from the same culture, there may be some benefits because there's a way in which, he just moves his eyebrow and you go, oh yeah, wash the dishes. And someone else may be like, why is he nodding his head like that? He doesn't, get it. So, but that's external. I mean, those are external things. They may be helpful, but somebody who suddenly says, because it's in Telugu, and then is attracted to a change in philosophy, this is due to being on a very low level of advancement in devotional service. The Kanishta Adhikari, whose faith is extremely weak. We have about 30 seconds. Shraddha?
I just wanted to make a quick short comment then. That is about the comment that you made about vibrations in offices. So I had a colleague visit us from New Jersey, my headquarters here, and he was like, what's wrong with these buildings? There's a very different vibration going on at headquarters as compared to New Jersey. And I was just thinking about, even among corporations, there is a gradation of,
the
vibrations. And by the way, his name is Deepak Goyal, and he's sitting in the last row at the back.
Really?
He came here.
Thank you for coming. Hare Krishna. Good to see you. Haribo.
We came here obviously to get some good vibrations.
Thank you. Satyadev Prabhu, you had a point?
I just wanted to resonate with Gandharvika that in my experience, speaking in Japan, when I use a translator, of course, and Vaish, he knows. Even when when Mahagun is translating, my wife, she knows exactly how I think and almost what I'm going to say before I say it, and she can translate my feeling. not only just the words, but my feeling, and it really goes through. Sometimes I've been in a situation where I've had a translator, and then somehow the translator's not getting it, or sometimes I'm in a situation where there's just no translator, and I forget that I'm speaking Japanese, or I'm not thinking anymore, trying to translate in my head English to Japanese, and I just do the best I can. Japanese, I just sort of go off, and I'm making all kinds of mistakes, but people always come up to me afterwards and say, I wish you'd just speak Japanese, and not use a translator, because they get the feeling, it touches them. So it really is very important that our books are translated into every language, that people need that in order to be touched sometimes and get the faith. I think you need to hear that in their language.
Thank you very much. And now we're going to put away all the Shastra deities efficiently and quickly, but with great respect. And then we'll have the Artik ceremony tonight, sung by His Grace Satyadev Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman, hey, Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman.